You know, he puts. It's like you know, they're as long as we're always looking up, we're kind of missing what's going on around us.
Oh, I see.
That whole kind of feeling. Not necessarily like we're looking up all the time, but we miss, because of this UFO hypothesis, we think they're coming from up there. Right. We're kind of blind to the fact that they could be already among us.
Or below us. Wow.
Or below us, yeah. Or just popping up every now and then.
But is that what he's saying, though? Like, in this book, like, I was a little confused. Is it they're literally living next door to you? I guess the hybrid versions are, maybe. Or are they living underground in some expansive, like, amazing city? Or is that what we don't know?
So that's... He
this
never
explains
really...
every weird neighbor that I've ever had. Okay, go ahead.
So he never really says, oh, this is them and this is where they come from. He's just... It's basically putting forth a hypothesis about, you know, what this could be. Like, he never specifically says, oh, they're from underground, or oh, they're from interdimensional. I don't think he really likes the idea of the interdimensional whole thing. He mentions that a couple of times, and he's like, yeah, maybe. But, I mean, I think that's makes just as much sense as this, to be honest. But and so when we talk about the whole idea of, like, them using our seed, our human seed, to the reproductive nature of abductions. And he mentions, have you ever heard the Antonio Villas-Boas Italian abduction, where he's...
No.
He was abducted and brought on board a ship and then made to have sex with an alien creature who was very much like grey looking. But he says he describes himself as being paradoxically both repelled and attracted to this thing. And so it was like almost like this mind control thing that comes through. So that's when he's saying these things are not so much technology as we see it advanced. I think it sounds like we're more advanced than they are technologically in some sense for a lot of things, but they have the ability to manipulate our minds and just, you know, fuck with us on another level that we, you know, have no idea how they do it. So he says about this whole reproductive idea, and specifically about Villas-Boas. So he was escorted onto the spaceship, and this woman pointed significantly to her abdomen. This is post-coitus. And then in the direction of the sky. So advocates of the extraterrestrial hypothesis have interpreted this as the reference to the woman's ET heritage. But at the same time, they've effectively ignored that troublesome prospect of genetic compatibility. Granted that Boas has had intercourse with an extraterrestrial, but what are the chances that two independently evolved humanoid species could mate in any viable sense? In Jacques Vallée's book, Revelations, he compares the feasibility of conceiving a human-alien hybrid to that of a human attempting to breed with an insect. Right? So he's sort of putting forth, like, if it is this idea that they're creating hybrids, why would we assume that something from another galaxy that evolved in a completely different way from us would be at all, you know, a match viably to create, you know, a DNA would be completely different, possibly. And again, this is where I say, like, he's painting with a pretty wide brush. You know, it's like, yeah, right. But, you know, it might just work too. Like, who knows?
but also that gives credence to mating with humans that live underground, like human beings,
right.
Like human other beings.
So
right?
that's what he's saying.
I don't buy it, though. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's the same argument, because if these beings have been hiding from us for a long time with crazy technology, then they can't figure out their own genetics. Like, I still have a hard time buying it, but he is right that it makes more sense it'd be something human-like genetically.
Right.
But again, that's taking a leap of faith that, I don't know, you keep hearing that the DNA, the human DNA, the bipedal structure is common out there in the cosmos. So who's to say you can't splice them together?
Yeah, I mean, ligers are real.
Yeah, liger is fucking badass, man. I saw one in real life.
You did not, really? God, I'm jealous.
Yeah. King Richard's Fair when I was a kid. The thing was 10 feet long. It was like a giant fucking lion. It didn't look like a tiger. It looked like a long-ass lion. Huge dick. So you knew
it's like 31 minutes into the podcast, and finally. Good job, guys.
There you go.
Good job.
Got it off my chest.
So he gets to this point about, like, mind control, where these things have this ability to manipulate us. And he says, If we share our planet with indigenous humanoids, and I think the case for terrestrial origin is at least as robust as the extraterrestrial hypothesis, then it would certainly appear we're numerically, if not technologically, superior. The others would be forced, again, a bit of a leap there, but anyway. Again, so the others would be forced to live at the periphery of normal human perception, perhaps utilizing techniques analogous to recent breakthroughs with brain-machine interfaces or mind control. And he says, he goes on to say, I find it highly suspicious, for example, that so many encounters with apparent aliens involve exposure to chemicals and needles inserted into the victim's head.
What?
Sometimes close encounter witnesses are asked to drink noxious tasting beverages prior to their conversing with the crew, or subject to imagery that can be ascribed to psychedelic conditioning. It would certainly seem that the aliens, terrestrial or otherwise, prefer to alter our perceptions prior to establishing contact. So they could fuck with us, basically. And if I think back to, the whole Fae folk story where they, the idea is that they will offer you food and drink, and for some reason you're not supposed to take that. I think you get stuck in their realm or something like that is the idea. But anyway, I thought that was interesting that they're not so much, like I was saying before, not so much technologically on par with us. They have an ability to, manipulate our minds, maybe projecting things into the sky. That's why I was kind of like talking about his analogy of like using the laser pointer to like fuck with cats.
I like that.
You're
that makes sense.
You're giving this little laser beam. It's like you're giving it life. You're directing it, and you're giving it intelligence, kind of thing, by moving it around, making it seem like it's alive. But the cat doesn't know; it just thinks it's chasing shit. So,
is that your theory, Matt, or that's the theory in the book?
No, we'll get to that. I'm almost done. There's just a lot in here, and I found it fascinating as an idea. Like I said, I didn't totally buy into it, but I have my own thoughts. So, are the others needing attention like spirits? Right? Here's where my theory comes in. So he says in the book, I think the aliens are waging the equivalent of a psyops campaign on the human species. It's doubtful their ultimate goal is anything so quaint or comprehensible as transgenic offspring. So the whole hybrid theory thing. But neither is it necessarily malign. Simply, our visitors appear to be striving to become adept at accessing our reality, in effect becoming more real, and thus increasingly compatible with us. We nourish them with our attention. Wherever we heard that before, right? We talk about, the spirits on the other side or whatever, wanting our attention to gain more life, basically, right?
Yeah, very interesting.
So that's kind of where I'm like, that's an interesting idea.
Huh.
Are these like spirit ideas like one and the same thing? Are they from somewhere else and they can only kind of come back? It reminds me of the jinn, like they used to be part of this world but they were banished and they're trying to get back in again, kind of thing, that whole idea. So we nourish them with our attention, and as they penetrate the barrier separating them from conscious reality, in which the subject of aliens and UFOs is systematically marginalized, they finally begin to loom above the bunkers of myth. Incidentally, the case of the Greys becoming rather like ourselves in the process. So I found that idea the most compelling, because we hear that not just with UFOs and stuff again and again, obviously not with UFOs at all, more with the whole spirit entities from the other side wanting our attention, the whole fear-based thing where they're feeding off some sort of emotion that we're giving these things.
Yeah,
I like that idea. I'm interested in that because I think there's such a surreal, consciously evolving nature to these things over the years. And he kind of argues that he kind of has this point where he's saying, like, on one hand, they're letting themselves know that they're there. They're letting humanity know that they're there. And on the other hand, they're also making it so bizarre and so crazy that we also, at the same time, disbelieve and laugh at this shit all the time.
Right.
And so it's like, it's a weird thing. It's like it's wanting the attention, but it's not at the same time. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that.
There's a,
And so
that
is it
weird.
teasing us?
yeah, I mean, it kind of. I know I like these things that kind of encompass like a whole bunch of different things into one idea, and but it's too neat. I think at the same time, like I don't think it fits all. Like as much as he was saying, like, oh, aliens, spacecraft are like, you know, they do this and they just kind of like make us like look up into the sky all the time. At the same time, it's like, well, you know, for every 10, 15 reports you hear of that, there's also 5 to 10 others that do something completely different. So I don't know. It's like that whole David Paulides idea with Missing 411. As soon as you come up with a theory of what's going on, there's a handful of other things that shit on that theory. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting. I think that they definitely want to communicate with us again. Well, just to go back to Walter, he says that they want to communicate with us. They have to wait till you're at a certain vibration to see them, talk to them.
That's right. Yeah,
and they're not good or evil. They could be one or the other. Like, you know, that's not.
Yeah, well,
that's on it. So,
that's one of the things
makes sense.
Max. Yeah, that's one of the things Max says towards the end as well, where he says there's like the continuing narrative that's being put on this other species is that he's heard over and over again, especially with the Greys, is that the species suffering from some sort of, you know, potentially debilitating genetic syndrome, and you know, they seem to be harvesting DNA or whatever from us to kind of save their population. And he's sort of saying, like, is that necessarily evil? Like, wouldn't we as a human species try to do the same thing, you know, no matter what the cost, if we had to? I don't know.
Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah. Anyway, I liked it. I like, in summation on this book, I dug it. I think it's worth a read just to hear kind of a different perspective. I think you can pull a lot from it. I don't think he makes the case that cleanly, to be honest, and I think you came away with the same sort of idea, Josh, when you read it. But
yes, I liked it. It was a good read. It proposed a good theory. I think it was just like you said, it was trying to force too many things into one idea, when the reality is it's probably multiple things. And maybe there's a race of humans living in the planet or somewhat like us. Maybe that's one thing going on. But I don't know, in my research, I found so many different encounters that people have had with different types of beings, and we know that abductees get taken to usually caves or underground bases, and they see a mix of aliens and humans, and it gets all really blurry. What is it? Is it aliens? Is it humans? Is it cryptoterrestrials? I just love that term. I just like saying it, cryptoterrestrials. I do like ultra-terrestrials,
and they love
better.
Bitcoin too, by the way.
Do they? Yeah, they love that crypto, just like Josh does. That's right. I referred to myself in the third person. So yeah, no, I'm all in on cryptos. I like the ultra-terrestrial theory a little better. The interdimensional thing is more fun. Again, either one doesn't have the most concrete evidence for us, so I don't know. But so what did I do? Well, so I found a fucking awesome story. What did you do? I found some obscure UFO video that put me on some deep research, where it was about these Russian divers who encountered something in a deep in a lake. But before I get this awesome story of a direct encounter with some sort of fucking beings, let me break down some shit for you first. Okay,
right.
So this all takes place in Russia, Mother Russia, which is like one of our favorite places now on this podcast. We're always bringing up Russia. Daltov's past, the fucking Russians trying to take over Venus. Of course they'd go after a planet called Venus. Fucking Russians. So a few years ago, did you guys know that...
Very hot women smell like sulfur. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
It's our planet now. Very stinky, but I like stinky. It's my thing. So, did you guys know that the Prime Minister of Russia, not Putin, so it was when the other guy, his name was, remember his name, Minister Dmitry Medvedev, whatever, how do you say it?
Yeah,
so
that sounds about right.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
He made a crazy statement that I think most people aren't aware of, that he lamented how the time has come for the world to know the truth about extraterrestrials. In fact, he believes that aliens are already living amongst us and have been doing so for quite a while. He gave this speech actually in front of the World Economic Forum. Even more brazen. This guy warned if the United States refuses to come forward with the information, Russian representatives will do so themselves. This guy said this at the World
Did
Economic
he wind
Forum.
up poisoned not long after this?
Yeah. Is he in a
Yeah, what happened to
hospital
this guy?
in the UK somewhere?